Dear students, this is the second video in medical physics in the topic human physiological system, and we are talking about cell. In the present video, we are going to see how a normal cell and a cancer cell will behave. What is happening to a normal cell and how the normal cell is being changed as a cancer cell. First video, we saw how a normal cell will have. A normal cell will be having a cell wall, and in the middle it will have a nucleus, that is well-defined nucleus. Inside the nucleus will be the DNA or the genetic material. And how this normal cell will behave when it is touching the another cell. One cell when it touches the another cell. When the cells are just dividing, the normal cells are just dividing, when this normal cell touches the another cell, they will stop dividing. They will not migrate into another area. This is the basic quality of normal cell. That is, a normal cell, typically the cycle of normal cell they have to grow, divide and die. Whereas when you come to a cancer cell, the cancer cell will behave in contrary to the normal cell. They will invade into the surrounding tissues and spread to other organs. They will divide in an abnormal way. They will invade the other cells. They never communicate, whereas the normal cells communicate with each other. Instead of dying, they keep on multiplying out of control and continue to reproduce the other abnormal cells. Most probably, or moreover, a mutant, that is, mutation is happening in a normal cell so that the cell is being so cancerous. Now, the cancerous cells are of different from normal cells. They grow. How do they look like? And how do they become a cancerous cell? It is because of the mutation. Mutation can happen of any way. Because of smoke, because of radiation, and there are so many other parameters with respect to food, etc. Now, this topic is going to cover the basic difference between the cancer cells and the normal cells. The normal cells, they grow and communicate, and they never invade the other cells. Whereas the cancer cells, they grow, they invade the other tissue and body, and they hide from the cancer treatments. This is a figure of normal cell and the cancerous cell. The normal cell is having well-defined plasma membrane and a nucleus in the middle, and all other cell organelles will be present in the cells. The nucleus will have the genetic material, DNA. These are the other kinds of normal cells. And coming here to the cancerous cells, there are so many cells that continue to grow and divide, whereas the cancerous cells don't have well-defined plasma membrane and they don't have well-defined nucleus. They are disorganized, whereas the chromosomes are not definite. These cancer cells look like that of a cluster. They just get agglomerated. They don't have a boundary. And this is a major difference between a normal cell and a cancerous cell. And how do these cells grow? Normal cells stop growing or reproducing when enough cells are present. For example, if you have a wound or if you have a cut in your hand, just to repair that cut or that wound, the new cells will be formed or the new skin will be formed. When this new skin is being formed, new cells are no longer produced when there are enough cells present to fill this cut or the wound. The repair will be done. Whereas in contrast, coming to this cancerous cells, they don't stop growing when there are enough cells present. Cancer cells reproduce rapidly before they have had a chance to mature. This continuous replication often results in a tumor, that is, a cluster of cancer cells. That each gene in a body carries a blueprint that codes for a different protein. Some of these proteins are growth factors, chemicals that tell cells to grow and divide. If the gene that codes for one of these proteins is struck in, that is in on position by a mutation, we call this as an oncogene. The growth factor proteins continue to be produced. In response to the cells continue to grow. Communication. In communication, the cancer cells do not interact with other cells as normal cells do. Normal cells respond to signals sent from other or nearby cells, and they say, you have reached your boundary, don't go across it. When normal cells hear these signals, they stop growing. But cancer cells never respond to such signals. Then coming to cell repair and cell death. It is otherwise known as homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's way of ensuring all its processes are working properly. Homeostasis is one area where normal cells and cancer cells are very different. To maintain homeostasis, normal cells are either repaired or die, that is, undergo apoptosis when they are damaged to get old. Cancer cells are either not repaired or do not undergo apoptosis. Stickiness. Normal cells secrete substance that make them stick together in a group, whereas cancer cells fail to make these substances and can float away to locations nearby or through the bloodstream or system of lymph channels to distant regions in this body. And how do they spread? The normal cells stay in the area of the body where they belong. For example, lung cells remain in the lungs. Some cancer cells may lack the adhesion molecules, and that causes the stickiness, and are able to detach and travel via the bloodstream and lymphatic system to other regions of the system. They have the ability to spread. It is known as metastasis. Once they arrive to a new region, such as lymph nodes, the lungs, the liver, or the bones, they begin to grow, often forming tumors far removed from the original tumor. Appearance. Under the microscope, normal cells and cancer cells may look quite different. In contrast to normal cells, cancer cells often exhibit much more variability in size. Some are larger than normal and some are smaller than normal. In addition to this, cancer cells often have an abnormal shape. Both the cell and the nucleus, the brain of the cell. The nucleus appears both larger and darker than normal cells. The reason for the darkness is that nucleus of cancer cells contains excess DNA. Up close to the cancer cells often have abnormal number of chromosomes. They are arranged in a disorganized way. Maturation. Normal cells mature. Cancer cells, because they grow rapidly and divide before cells are fully mature, remain immature. The doctors use the term undifferentiated to describe immature cells. Another way to explain this is to view cancer cells as cells that don't grow up and specialize to adult cells. The degree of maturation of cells corresponds to the grade of cancer. Cancers are graded on the scale from 1 to 3, with 3 being the most aggressive one. Evasion of the immune system. When normal cells become damaged, the immune system, that is via cells called lymphocytes, identifies and removes them. Cancer cells are able to trick the immune system long enough to grow into a tumor by either escaping detection or by secreting chemicals that inactive the immune system or the immune cells. Some of the new immunotherapy medication address this aspect of cancer cells. Function. Normal cells perform the function they are meant to perform, whereas cancer cells may not be functional. For example, normal white blood cells help fighting off infections. In leukemia, the number of white blood cells may be very high, but since the cancerous white blood cells are not functioning as they do, people can be more at risk for infection even with an elevated white blood cell count. The same can be true for substance produced. For example, normal thyroid cells produce thyroid hormones. Cancerous thyroid cells, that is thyroid cancer, may not produce thyroid hormone. In this case, the body may lack enough thyroid hormone. It is known as hypothyroidism, despite an increased amount of thyroid tissue. Blood supply. Angiogenesis is a process by which cells attract blood vessels to grow and feed the tissue. Normal cells undergo the process called angiogenesis only as part of normal growth and development when new tissue is needed to repair the damaged tissue. Cancer cells undergo angiogenesis even when growth is not necessary. One type of cancer treatment involves the use of angiogenesis inhibitors, medications that block the angiogenesis in the body in an effort to keep tumors from growing. And a question, how do cells become cancerous? There are proteins in the body that trigger cell growth. Your DNA carries genes that are the blueprint of proteins produced in the body. Some of these proteins are growth factors, chemicals that tell cells to divide and grow. Other proteins work to stop suppressed growth. Mutations in particular genes, for example, those caused by tobacco smoke, radiation, ultraviolet radiation, and other carcinogens, can result in the abnormal production of proteins. Too many might be produced or not enough. Sometimes the proteins are abnormal and they function differently. Normally, roughly speaking, 3 billion cells divide in the body every single day. When accidents in the reproduction of these cells happen during any of those divisions, for example caused by genes or environmental carcinogens, it may create a cell that can mutate more and develop into a cancer cell. The cell needs to have growth factors that prompt it to grow even when growth is not necessary. The cells have to evade proteins that direct cells to stop growing and die when they become abnormal. The cell needs to evade signals from other cells, and the cells needs to lose the normal stickiness, that is adhesion of the molecules of normal cell produce. The effective way to fight cancer. Cruciferous vegetables like beet, radish, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts and mustard greens are some of the vegetables that belong to Brassicaceae family of vegetables. Green leafy vegetables, garlic, tomatoes and berries are to be included in your diet to fight cancer. Do cancer cells have oxygen? Cancer cells often have starved of oxygen, a condition called hypoxia. One substance where this might occur is when enlarging tumors outgrow the network of blood vessels that supplies tumor cells with oxygen. The types of treatable but not curable cancer: chronic lymphocytic leukemia, chronic myeloid leukemia, myeloma, pleural mesothelioma, secondary brain tumor, secondary breast cancer, secondary bone cancer, secondary liver cancer, etc. Thank you.